Greetings. This last chapter is kind of a bit of a catch-all. It actually has three different categories. It has presumption, ambiguity, and grammatical analogy. So we're going to start off with the presumption. Fallacies of presumption is a category. There are four within it. And these are fallacies that already assume the conclusion is true within the premises. The premises include the conclusion being assumed true. And there's really no need to argue if you've already assumed the premises or the conclusion is true. You know, what's the point? And so the problem is the conclusion is assumed true within the premises. And so you need to get that out of there, or you need to just say, hey, I don't have an argument because there's nothing really here. I already know the conclusion is true. The most common one is what we call begging the question. Now, first off, you sometimes hear people on TV, news programs, and other things saying, well, that begs this question. What really they're saying is that raises this question. And one thing to say about that is begging the question is actually a technical phrase for circular reasoning. And so they're really kind of misusing that term. Most of the time you hear somebody say that begs the question, is they actually are saying that raises the question. And so it's a bit of a pet peeve for logicians that they use that phrasing. But whatever. I mean, that's a difference between a technical understanding that you now have versus a popular understanding. And so it's also called circular reasoning. And essentially what happens is the arguer uses the conclusion to prove the premises, thus arguing in a circle. Apple makes the best computers, they have the best programmers, and we know that because they have the best computers. Here, the conclusion is Apple makes the best computers, and the reason is they have the best programmers, and we know that because they have the best computers is, right there, we know they have the best computers because they have the best computers, and that doesn't make any sense. It's circling around. Other things that sometimes are circular, like homosexuality is unnatural. I've heard people do this many times. They'll say homosexuality is unnatural. You say why, and they say, well, because it's not natural. And you say, well, yeah, I know that would be exactly what you just said. And they say, well, what is natural? And you say, well, natural is sex between a man and a woman. And you say, and why is that natural? And you say, because it is. Okay, so the very idea of what's natural is not homosexuality. Therefore, homosexuality is not natural. Your conclusion is your premise. There is no argument there. You aren't giving me a reason for that conclusion. You're just telling me that's the case. Okay, and that begs the question, or it's begging the question. A complex question is where you propose an answer to a previous question. Thus, when you ask the question, you're actually answering the first one already. Usually these are yes or no questions, and really you have two questions. And the first one is something like, well, if I ask you, are you still cheating? And you go, no. And I'll say, oh, so you're not still cheating, but you were cheating. Really what's happening there is there are two questions. There's a question of, have you ever cheated? And then, are you still cheating? Or if you said yes, then are you still cheating? Have you cheated in the past? And are you cheating in the present? There's two questions. The other one would be like, sometimes students say, oh, like, does your mom know you're gay? That was one some students have used in the class before. Does your mom know you're blank? The idea here is that you have really two questions. Are you blank? Are you gay? Are you, cheating? Are you doing this? And the other question is your mom aware of that? And so, but when you ask that question, if you say yes, then you're admitting to not only your mother knowing it, but you're meaning that, as well as when you say no, you're saying she doesn't know, but I am that. And that's the case. A friend of mine one time, this girl he knew came to visit him. I asked him, if he was romantically involved, and he wouldn't say. And I said, well, I know you're good friends with this other person. Did you tell him about your romantic relationship? And he said, that's a complex question. And I said, oh, you got me. Because if he said yes, then he would be admitting, yes, I told him about the romantic relationship. He said, no, I didn't tell him about the romantic relationship. Either way, he's admitting to it. And so the conclusion has already been presumed. False dichotomy. A false dichotomy is also sometimes called a bifurcation. The dichotomy is where it's basically an either-or statement. It's either one way or the other. But what makes it false is it's basically forcing you to do it one way or the other, and oftentimes there's many other options. Somebody says to you, Bill said this. Bill's either a liar or he's dumb or he's stupid. Which is it? The first George Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, Sr., when he raised taxes, he had said, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and people said, either he lied when he said that, or he was too stupid to realize he was going to raise taxes. Well, that's sort of creating a false dichotomy. It's not either or. He may have said no new taxes, not because he was stupid and not because he was lying, because at that time, in the current situation, he foresaw that there would be no new taxes, and then he later realized that that wasn't tenable and that he would have to raise them. And so it's not really either or, it's really the case that he lacked the insight at that time. It wasn't stupidity, it was ignorance. And it was ignorance that was broad and widespread. It wasn't something that was unique for just him. Another example is either you give me a mink or I'll freeze to death. Well, a mink isn't always necessary for you to avoid freezing. Teens oftentimes do it. Either you let me go out with my friends or I'll die. Well, that's a false dichotomy. It's not either or. Either I go out with my friends or I die. It's, I would like to go out with my friends, or I could die, or I could stay home and watch TV. That's what the false dichotomy is. It's only allowing you two options. Suppressed evidence. Suppressed evidence is probably a pretty well, you might know this, but somebody gives you a bunch of reasons, but they miss the key point. My wife recently, she signed up for this magazine, 1 year free subscription, no strings attached, or something like that. And so she signed up and said, I'd like to get it. It was like a parenting, new baby. And so she did, and as soon as the magazine came, they sent her a bill. And they said, well, we're giving you a year for free, but you have to pay for a year too. And so basically she just said, I don't want it then. If you're going to charge me, because your ad said no strings attached, one free year. Pretty obviously. And so there's a piece of suppressed evidence. They're not giving you the fine print or something, which I would say that they were actually false advertising. But if push came to shove and wanted to make a big deal out of it, I'd probably just take their ad to the state's attorney and let them figure it out. But the case is that, because I would actually argue that you can't advertise something and then not mention all the terms, and that's suppressed evidence. Other cases of suppressed evidence, somebody might say every president ever elected, back in 2008, every president ever elected was a white male. Therefore, the next president of the United States will be a white male. Well, if that would be a good argument if it weren't for the case that in 2008 Barack Obama was a leading contender for the presidency. And if you even went back a year before that, the leading ticket for the Democratic Party was a white female, Hillary Clinton, and a black male, Barack Obama. And so, if you suppress that fact, then you're doing it. And so the case is with inductive arguments, you can have what we call suppressed evidence, which is where you're leaving out something critical to you reaching a conclusion. The next category are fallacies of ambiguity. I'm going to go ahead and do the fallacies of ambiguity. I think I'll have enough time. Actually, let me just check my time here real quick. Just so I see. I have 5 minutes. I'll go ahead and do the fallacies of ambiguity. Essentially, fallacies of ambiguity depend upon more than one meaning and then exploiting it. There's what we call equivocation. Basically, it depends on a double meaning of a word. They try to equivocate or say that the words, because they are similar, they're the same word, but they have two meanings. They try to use it. We should go to the blood bank and withdraw some blood. Because they depend upon banks or places where you deposit stuff and then withdraw. Therefore, we should go to the blood bank and withdraw some blood. Or we should go to the blood bank and see if we can get some money or something like that. You know, it's depending on this confusion over the word bank. Just because a bank is typically that doesn't mean it's that in every one. You know, some triangles are obtuse. Obtuse means ignorant, therefore some triangles are ignorant. Okay, obtuse does mean that, but it doesn't mean it in that case. And so it's just basically where there's confusion over the fact that a word has two meanings. You sometimes get people who see a word and they go, I sometimes will have students will say, well, what does that mean? And I'll say, well, yeah, the word means that, but that's not what it means here. And that's an equivocation. Ambivalently, on the other hand, the confusion comes in the form of the statement as a whole. The statement as a whole is confusing. John told Henry he made a mistake. Thus, John has the courage to admit his mistakes. Well, John told Henry he made a mistake. Is John telling Henry that John made a mistake, or is John telling Henry that Henry made a mistake? And so there's confusion. That's the statement as a whole. I'm sorry, and if you look at the top, it says it relies on misinterpretation of a syntactically. It should be syntactically. syntactically. Meaning that there's some syntax that's confusing. John told Henry that, Henry made a mistake. John told him would be maybe a better way to say that, to avoid that. Or Professor Smith is giving a lecture on heart failure in the biology lecture. There must be a lot of people having heart attacks during this class. Okay, he's giving a lecture about heart failure in the lecture hall. Well, he's giving a lecture in the lecture hall about heart failure. And so there's some confusion, and that would be an ambivalent. Grammatical analogy. This is essentially where you use analogies, but the analogy is because something's true of the whole thing, a large group, but it also has to be true of the parts, or vice versa, because something's true of the parts, it must be true of the whole. And so basically it's saying because, particular statements are part of a general, that it's true, or vice versa. And it's what we call composition. If something is true of all the parts of something, then it must be true of the whole. And that's not necessarily the case. Somebody might say each player on a team is good, therefore the team must be good. Well, just because each team player is good doesn't make the team as a whole good. Sometimes a bunch of good players don't make a good team. Just because each player is good doesn't make the team good. Every atom in the car is invisible, therefore the car must be invisible. Yes, you're right, cars are made up of atoms, and so every part of it is true, that each part is invisible, but it doesn't make the thing as a whole invisible. Gambler's fallacy, another type of gambler's fallacy, is the idea that, everybody who buys a lottery ticket shouldn't expect to win. Therefore, nobody should expect to win. Well, that's not true. Just because no individual should expect to win doesn't mean nobody should expect to win. The group can expect to win it. Spring break. There's some research that shows that people actually, if you take the individual parts of a vacation, or individual parts, that you say, well, if you're having a great time every day of your spring break, you must be having the best week possible. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Just because you're having a great day every day doesn't mean you have a great week as a whole. And that's another thing. Division, on the other hand, works the other way. And they say just because it's true of the whole doesn't mean it's true of the parts. A jigsaw or puzzle. A jigsaw puzzle is rectangular when assembled, so the pieces must be rectangular. The average family has 2.5 children. The Smiths have an average family. They must have 2.5 children. Just because something is true of the whole doesn't make it true of all the parts. Another example of division might be, like with a riot or something, the group was out of control, therefore each individual was out of control. Well, sometimes a big group can be out of control, but it doesn't mean each individual is out of control. Just because you're part of a group doesn't mean you can break it down and make it true of all the parts. And that's division. Okay, I got through all that in one 15-minute section, so you don't have to watch 2 of these.